Hey there, Nerd Nation. Darth Jaeger here with an important question for y'all. What's the best 1980s TV show about a time-traveling pirate and his underage boy genius companion ever made? Well, the answer, of course, is Voyagers. Voyagers was a historical time travel sci fi adventure series created by James D. Parriott and broadcast for one season on NBC from October 1982 to July 1983. The show opens with our young protagonist waking up from a dream in which he fails to rescue his parents from a pirate invasion, possibly taking place in an 18th century port town. The boy and his dog listen as his aunt and uncle complain about being saddled with him, and it's here we learn the boy's parents are dead. Action ensues as a tall, blonde haired, blue eyed pirate smashes through the window of his 30th story apartment building and demands to know, "Where's Columbus, kid?" A fracas with the dog ensues, the pirate loses his book, and the adventure begins. Voyagers starred Jon-Erik Hexum as Phineas Bogg, a time-traveling pirate who we later learn didn't pay a lot of attention in Voyager school and relied on this guidebook to do his job. Mino Peluce, Pelu, Peluche? Peluche? Also stars as Bogg's precocious 14-year-old sidekick and history savant Jeffrey Jones. No, not that Jeffrey Jones. Where Hexum's Bog was the historic ladies' man who is completely lost without his Voyager guidebook, Peluce's Jeffrey is more often than not serving as the exposition dump of the episodes, explaining the wheres, the whats, the who's involved, and occasionally getting in the middle of Bog's, let's call them romantic distractions. Each week, our protagonists would travel back and forth through time and space, getting into adventures and fixing history where it goes wrong, so that historical events flow in a manner in which the history books say they did. You see, the show served as not only an action adventure sci fi fantasy with a time travel hook, but also as a historical educational program that taught the viewer, albeit superficially, about the historical events and figures that Bog and Jeff would encounter in their travels. At the end of every episode, over the closing credits, a voiceover by Mino Peluce would encourage the viewer to learn more about the historical events and persons featured in the episode by taking a voyage down to your local library. It's all in books. Voyagers was generally a lot of fun, and sometimes a little corny, but that's okay, as the charming likability of the main characters made up for it. And much like a lot of the adventure programs of the great 1980s, it was filled with, a good old fashioned heroism, masculinity, and black and white morality not seen in today's gray tinted postmodern, mean spirited trash TV and streaming shows, whose writers basically despise morals, masculinity, and heroism, and storytelling for that matter. The show makes great use of its time travel gimmick, with the Voyagers traveling from ancient Egypt to World War I France, all over the United States and Mexico, and even ancient Rome, where they meet Spartacus, and all of this without the requirement of a passport. The production itself made liberal use of the Universal backlot and standing sets, as well as various locations in and around Los Angeles. However, the show's designers and directors did a terrific job of using every trick in the book to make sure every episode's location looked unique and at times even cinematic, which is pretty amazing for 1982 television. Of course, shooting in the LA area also meant the use of a lot of local extras and day players, which at times made for a few rather dodgy British accents.
You're British? Yes, but very far away from home. I'm afraid I shall never see England again.
Rewatching the show, there was a lot of episodes I didn't even remember watching when I was a kid, but some of the ones that stuck out to me while watching, of course, were the pilot episode, the trial of Phineas Bogg, All Fall Down. These ones come to mind. And of course, the final episode of what would turn out to be the finale of the entire series, Jack's Back. Just as an aside, and this is such a nerd thing, really, but with myself, even back when I was a kid watching sci fi TV shows and movies, I always had this curiosity as how things worked in universe, you know? This mostly revolved around how characters communicated with each other when they didn't speak the same language. In Star Trek, they had the Universal Translator, and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the Babel Fish, and years later, Doctor Who producers explained the translation of alien language as being the TARDIS telepathic circuits doing it for the characters. Voyagers has no such explanation. And that was kind of just stuck in my craw a little bit, especially the episodes in ancient Rome and the one where Cleopatra gets transported to Prohibition era New York. But how about y'all? Do you ever think about the nerdy stuff like this when watching genre TV and movies? Let me know in the comments below. That's a bit of a tangent. Anyway, back to the review. The pilot starts off with a bang with a pirate battle, explosions, sword fights. I'm in. And then 5 minutes into the show, the audience knows the characters, the concept, the tone for the series to come. It's fast paced, it's action, it's characters. It's all there. And by the end, I was all in as a kid. I mean, even today, it's an exceptional pilot. The Trial of Phineas Bogg, I know this is not only what they call in the business a bottle episode, but also a clip show. But it's in the framing material of the episode that it really shines, delving into the lore of the Voyagers, introducing us to two new characters, Susan, the girl who distracted Bogg from his studies in school, and Drake, Bogg's greatest rival, a sort of master to Bogg's doctor, who would also return later in the series to menace our heroes once again. And speaking of Doctor Who, about 3 years later in 1986, the BBC would use a similar concept and put the Sixth Doctor, played by Colin Baker, on trial in season 23's The Trial of the Time Lord. In All Fall Down, the boys have to convince Joe Louis to return to boxing in a rematch against German boxer Max Schmeling. And Jeffrey fights a hijacker and is forced to land a 747 jetliner when everybody on board is rendered unconscious. This episode was written by Harry and Renee Longstreet, who were also producers and would go on to write episodes of Alien Nation, among other things. As a kid, I loved boxing, was a huge fan of Ali. Yeah, I mean, who wasn't, right? So it was fun to watch a story about a boxer I'd never heard of at the time, you know. And the episode even includes a training montage.
That's when you need to put yourself to the test and show us a passage of time. We're gonna need a montage. Ooh, it takes a montage.
Plus, the B story about the airline hijacking was just bonkers. Enough to it's crazy. It puts a smile on my face every time I watch it. The season/series finale, Jack's Back, gave viewers the second appearance of Drake in an adventure in 1880s London, where the boys help reporter Nellie Bly escape the vile clutches of Jack the Ripper, while at the same time helping cure Sir Arthur Conan Doyle of his writer's block. This episode's beautifully shot, with a moodiness and a dark tone which is just palpable. It pulls the viewer in. It's also great to see the return of Voyager Drake at his calculating best. Back in 1983, it was exciting to think that he would be returning to menace our heroes again in what could only be an inevitable second season showdown. But alas, that would never happen. As Voyagers neared the end of its initial run of episodes, the ratings weren't great, fighting as it was against the CBS ratings juggernaut 60 Minutes. But the numbers were good enough for a renewal. That is until NBC execs decided that what the network really needed to win against a news program was a news program. So word came down to cancel Voyagers and replace it with a TV news magazine show called Monitor. And that show is still running to this day. Oh, no, that never happened. Monitor got only a tenth of the ratings Voyagers was pulling, and then was canceled after only a few episodes. Once again, this is the reason why executives shouldn't be allowed to make creative decisions. Right, KK? And on a serious note, after the cancellation of Voyagers, the two leads moved on to other projects. Jon-Erik Hexum, notably, booked a part in the Glenn A. Larson produced spy show Cover Up, and it was here that tragedy struck. During a quiet moment in between setups, Hexum somehow got hold of a blank loaded firearm and started playing Russian roulette with it. The gun fired, and the force of the wadding discharging from the barrel was enough to cause severe brain damage. He would pass away in hospital 6 days later. He was 26. I just have to ask sometimes, where was the production armorist at the time? I don't know. Was there ever an investigation? I don't know. But in the end, the coroner ruled his death an accident, and to those of us who really know anything about firearm safety, it's really a wholly preventable one. Out of the myriad of action-adventure TV shows of the 1980s, Voyagers stood out to me. Its unique time travel concept, its fun educational stories, the charisma and chemistry of its two lead characters, made for an enjoyable, albeit sadly short-lived, Lost Sci-Fi TV show. But what do y'all think? Did you watch Voyagers in the 1980s, or maybe discover it later in life? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you liked the video, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications, and I'll see all y'all in the next video. Later.